Hey, Jedi friend. Good morning. It's about 04 hours 13 minutes here in New York City, and I haven't done a work scope. A scope. This just shows how old I am on doing these live streams. Periscope isn't even around anymore. I haven't done a live YouTube. I don't even know what you want to call these live streams. It just seems boring. I liked Periscope because it had this thing where you could. They called it scoping. So you had a word for it. So you had, oh yeah, I'm gonna do a scope. This is, I guess, just streaming, but it's not specific to YouTube. Anyways, I digress. So it's morning time here in New York City, and I am just kind of working on some stuff here. And, just anybody out there who's just chilling, just kind of bored and alone, which I know there's a lot of you out there, because that's primarily what social media is. Social media, if you haven't figured it out, if you're new to it or if you've been around for a while, is mostly people that are very depressed. That's why they're on social media. Because they don't feel comfortable going out and meeting people in person. Jedi Joy really and I talk about this a lot. We really philosophize about these things, like what is it? Why do people? What makes people want to go out? What makes people want to do things? Why was Vegas, for example, we were in Las Vegas between 2013 and 2016, and that was just insane for those 2 or 3 years there. It was just, it was just crazy. People were spending money like you would not believe. The nightclubs were filled with conventioneers. Judge Joy would tell me about these guys that would tell her that they had like $100,000 table. They spent $100,000 to reserve a table, and they had to fight to spend that $100,000. There's if they didn't do it, someone else would have. That's the kind of money that was flowing through Vegas in 2016, 2015. And what happened was, okay, we'll talk about Vegas today. Is that what we want to talk about? Well, what happened was in 2014, 2015, it was coming right off that crash, that real estate crash of 2008. And so when they revamped up 5 years later, the players there that kind of took a bath for a year there really wanted to recoup their investment. They wanted to recoup how much they lost. So Steve Wynn, he's not stupid. He picked up on one of the hottest things that was going on internationally at the time, which was EDM music. We were in Panama at the time, and we'll contest that EDM was happening in 2012 and 2013 when we were in Panama. It was the thing. We were just like, it was just like everyone. Like Tiesto, David Guetta, all these artists that were now just mainstream today, we had never heard of before. Maybe a couple, but not many. Or maybe we'd heard their songs but didn't know who they were. But down there in Panama, it was just like, it was the rest of the world was on this EDM trip and doing this Electric Daisy Carnival thing. Well, Steve Wynn, he's not stupid. He travels a lot and he has his pulse on the finger, at least his people do, of what's going on. And so in 2010, he opens the Wynn, he brings in XS Nightclub, and he lands some of those top DJs. He might have been, and for all we know, Steve Wynn might have been part of making that music movement happen. But quite honestly, dance music was limited to dance clubs. So if you wanted to, if you were listening to David Guetta or Zed or any of those old, Dylan Francis and that stuff, you weren't hearing that on the radio. Oh, wait, hold on 1 second. There's my wife. Okay, I'm back. So I digress. So anyways, but what we were talking about was how EDM music was really big. And the reason why I bring that up is because in 2015 or 2014, I remember seeing Steve Wynn on the television in local news boasting about at a conference, you can probably look it up somewhere, at a conference at a earnings report, saying that 40% of their total revenue was coming from that XS nightclub. 40%. And that includes all the hotel rooms, all the restaurants, all the gambling. But 40% of their revenue, almost half, was coming from one nightclub. Tells you what was happening. There was something happening with the nightclub movement, but it was wrapped into the casino. So everyone thought, shit, let's just build a casino with a nightclub. It seems like you can't miss. I mean, so Cosmo did it with Marquee, and then they became the second highest grossing nightclub. And then Hakkasan. I mean, I don't know the order which these came in because they're all just kind of going for it. But I remember when we were living there, it was like Calvin Harris in 2014 was kind of an unknown name slightly for a minute. And then he started dating Taylor Swift. I mean, how much more mainstream can you get than that? So all of a sudden, Taylor Swift is dating this person named Calvin Harris. Yeah, that's how big EDM had become. So Taylor Swift is dating Calvin Harris, and so it's a really big thing. They break up though. They break up in 2015, 2016, right about the time that, EDM is still cool, but, just like anything, I mean, the disco was cool too, but at some point it moved on to something else. Heavy metal was cool, but that moved on to something else too. So it's not that these aren't cool, it's just that, times change. And when it comes to entertainment, it comes to music tastes, those are very fickle. So 40% of Las Vegas's business was coming in through Wynn. Through excess for Wynn. It's probably what the other models were trying to, formulate. Because I know this because Chaos opened at the Palms in 2019 and closed 5 days later. They had they had DJ Marshmallow, Skrillex, Cardi B opened the nightclub. I can't think of more entertainers that you could bring to open a nightclub to guarantee you success if there was a market there, and it failed. Now some are speculating it failed because there were some embezzlement issues that were going on there, and then the Palms shortly there closed after. So people say people stole a lot of money off the stuff, and that's why it failed. However, there have been no FBI indictments. There's been no FBI investigation into it. So it doesn't appear to be the case. What appears to be happening is just taking other people's money, stockholder money, investor money, and misusing it. They went out and they spent $60 million for a DJ for 2 years to spin records. It's not that easy, but the guy brings a crowd, but you know what I'm saying. But $60 million for 2 years. It was the largest contract in history. It was outrageous. Because they were banking on that the XS nightclub, they wanted to beat XS. They wanted that. They thought you could just keep building and there would be no limits to growth. At the same time this was all being designed, and this is why I'm bearish on Resorts World. At the same time this was all being planned, Resorts World was trying to be built in 2017. That was its original opening date. It was supposed to be done, maybe even before then, but the one I remember was 2017. So they had this big nightclub plan, and they were going to bring in, it was right across the street from Wynn. And they were going to take them on. That was 2017. And then the shooting happened. I only laugh because, I don't know, when you see the difference about how New York handles a tragedy, or maybe Boston handles a tragedy, and then you saw how Las Vegas handled it, it was like 1 month of everybody being, oh, okay, this is really sad, and they did a few little things. And then it was like, okay, great, let's continue doing the same plans that we had before, like building a stadium basically right where the shooting occurred. They did not even stop to consider that, that might be, I don't know. Anyways, the point is that the market changed after a shooting at a concert, at a music. In fact, there was a lot of shootings going on in those 2 years. There was an Ariana Grande shooting. There was a shooting at a bar in Florida, a gay bar. So there was this, there was others. And then this one was the largest one, of course. And, I have some theories on this one. This is crazy, but you'll never get the answer from anybody. But I speculate that this was all had to do with a lot of stuff to do with the casinos. It was like mob warfare at its highest level, because this was not like these were military weapons. You know, this was not some shooter that got an AR-15 at a Walmart. This was, the dude had military weapons that shot like I want to say 9 rounds per second. Does that sound possible? Does anybody know? I don't know. I remember, that's what I recall, 9 rounds per second. Well, you can imagine what that would do to a little girl. So anyways, I digress, but that's a reality of what happened in 2017. And no one wants to talk about it because it's morbid or whatever, but it can be, but it did happen. So to not talk about it is quite disrespectful. And to continue to build on top of things can also be a little bit disrespectful. However, but I mean, I'm not about that. I'm not like saying, hey, shut everything out. But the fact is that people stopped going to nightclubs. There was this sort of like, you know, and then Vegas sort of had this sort of thing like, I don't know. And at the same time, they're bringing the hockey team in. So everybody's seeing this, like the hockey team, you know, do the martyr thing. Oh, poor Vegas, poor Vegas. Well, I mean, Vegas isn't like Boston or some of these other cities. It's not one anybody really wants to martyr about. It's just not. I mean, people don't want to think about Vegas because they don't live there. Most people don't even think people live there. It's just a place you go to party and you go home. So when you start seeing all this martyrism and then the hockey team and then the football team, people start, you know, you get an opinion of teams. You start seeing the fans, you start seeing how they act, you start seeing how the players act. And then when you bring the Raider Nation in, which already has an image of being bad boys and really thuggish and, you know, just, you know, hey, don't mess with us sort of thing, and very, very homophobic, by the way. I can tell you that right off the bat. Very, very homophobic and extremely misogynistic. Those are two facts about the Raider Nation that I don't know if that's widespread knowledge, but to me it was not. But they just are just really. Well, who's that there? Oh, I actually have somebody in the room today. Well, hello, my first live stream commenter. What you say? Hi, good morning. I'm just rambling. I do this at home into my own cameras, but I don't post them. It's like I just kind of tell what's happening. It's easier than writing sometimes. But I don't post them because a lot of times they're formulated thoughts, and maybe I don't even really believe them. And sometimes you're just kind of thinking, formulating thoughts. You say things that, you know, hey, I really think this way. And then as you say it, you're like, yeah, now I don't anymore. But then everybody's going to hold you to what you said. Hey, you said you hated black people. Well, yeah. I mean, I was describing a situation. And then as I said that, I went forward and I said, you know, now I think about it, not really. But then they're going to hold on it. But that's the process of talking. I live in Vegas and don't know why I'm still up, LOL. Well, I'll give you a couple of reasons. Number one, it's really hot. And so you're trapped inside. And so the air conditioning is on, and so the extra oxygen is probably making you stay awake. Not to mention at 2,000 feet, sleep can be a little tough. But you already know that, you live there. So yeah, so I'm just kind of rambling about Vegas. I was just talking about, like, you know, kind of like what happened, and it's just kind of funny, like, you see, you know, basically the Jedi got pushed, LOL, so true. The Jedi got pushed out of, you know, I mean, there was no chance of me ever working in Vegas as a journalist or with any of the media there or doing anything because, see, I'm the only one saying, hey guys, kind of, they're all saying like, yeah, Vegas is awesome. Everybody come here, please. You know, don't worry about the shooting and don't worry about the weather. Don't worry about the Lake Mead. Don't, you know, just constantly don't worry about it. And just because the news is sponsored by the casinos, you know, and I don't have any problem with that. However, it's like you need a countering voice to talk to people. Why did I move to NYC Jedi? Well, let's see, because this is where I was before I went to Vegas. This is where I was before I became depressed. 20 years ago, I was a normal person. Not that I'm not normal now, but this is 20 years in the making. And so when I was 30 years old, I was just like everyone else. You know, I was like what you guys are, more, you know, kind of just working and making money and eating food and having fun and just trying to enjoy myself. And I lived here in New York City, and that's what I did. Then 9/11 happened, and then what happened is I got really depressed. I lived blocks from the Twin Towers, and depression is one of those things that I didn't even know what it was because I'd never been in depression before, and it's like quicksand. Like you're kind of walking, you don't know you're in quicksand, right? If you're just standing there, because it's so slow, you don't know it until it's almost too late. So that's kind of the situation I was in. So I was kind of like in quicksand. I didn't realize it, and I grew up in an area where people aren't supposed to have problems. You know, my friends were all very wealthy. They're all, you know, highly educated. My father's educated. We grew up, you know. Oh, my wife is home. Here she is. I'll get back to that subject later. But anyways, that wasn't allowed, and so I got really sad and depressed. Oh, okay, hold on. I'm going to close this out, guys. We'll check you guys out later. What happened over there? Oh, sorry, I'm on this live stream.